Peace and great blessings, everyone. Welcome to my channel. If you're new, please like and subscribe. And I want to wish you all the warmest greetings on this very, very cold January day. It's January 28th, 2026. And it is, if you're on the East Coast, you are feeling these extremely cold temperatures, and you probably navigating your way around some snow and ice too. And guess what? We're supposed to be getting a little bit more of it. Hold on, family. I got an intruder. No, go back downstairs. So once again, everyone, it's always something in my house. I hope everyone is staying nice and warm and preparing for more inclement weather that we're promised to get. But you know what? This is the way it is nowadays with the changes that's taking place in our climate and on our planet. And the weather is getting more and more extreme and more unpredictable. So, with that said, we're going to jump right into tonight's topic, preparing for the unknown and what is to come. Now, we have been hearing a whole lot of things, and everything we hear, family, is not always true, but some things are. And one thing that's true is there is so much change taking place. I mean, when I say change, like radical, dramatic changes that some of which have not been seen before in our lifetimes. Some of the change seems very dramatic, and we had a discussion about this at my job earlier today, and some of it seems extreme and chaotic, but it's very similar to some things that have taken place in previous years and in previous generations, and some of the political and social changes that are taking place are just cyclical. It's the same thing that happened in the civil rights movement, same kind of things that were happening in other movements, and it's just happening again and again. Same soup, different bowl, and it just seems different because of the time, or many of the younger generation may not remember similar incidents. And so it seems like, oh, this is something new, but it has happened before. And there's, so the one thing that we can say that is constant is change. And change is just, change be changing. So tonight we're going to talk about how to be prepared for this, these unprecedented times that are ahead of us. We need to be really strategic in how we prepare. And that is for all of them, being strategic, having a plan, having a vision, having the courage to carry out that plan and vision, being able to strategize and make decisions, not being, we don't want to succumb to the victim consciousness. We don't have that consciousness here at Astral Healing Arts. We don't. But we don't want to succumb to that. And we don't want to succumb to the feelings of helplessness and hopelessness and powerlessness, because we do have much power in our collective mind, and also in our individual minds and our souls. We have that. That's one thing that we have. There's one thing that can't be taken away from us is our inner strength, our inner power, our mind power, our ability to tap within and to connect to that divine part of ourselves and connect it to the divine part of each other and make right decisions. That higher consciousness is there to guide you and to help you make right decisions. I call it right guidance. Is that's what it's there for. And sometimes in the heat of the moment, sometimes when the going gets tough and we're feeling some kind of way, we forget that we have that. Even I do too sometimes. We forget that we have that inner knowing, that inner voice, that inner guidance And also, we have the tools to tap into divine guidance, divine knowledge, and wisdom through our um, spiritual practices, whether it's prayer, zikr, meditation, chanting, whatever, hugging the trees outside, taking your shoes off, and grounding yourself and earthing and connecting to the heartbeat of Mother Earth, whatever it is that you find peace and solace and guidance in. That is what you're going to be using in these trying times that we're in and to come. And it's going to help you in so many ways. Stay grounded, stay alert, stay ready so you don't have to get ready, and to stay prepared during this time. So let's talk about that. All right. How do we prepare for something? There is a saying I heard a few years ago: be ready so you don't have to get ready. And how do you prepare for something if you don't know what it's about, if you don't have enough knowledge on what's happening? You're in the dark. It's a little bit difficult to be ready. But there are some things that you can do regardless of what the circumstances you find yourself in, regardless of what those um, situations that you find going on around us. As long as you're ready and you're grounded and razor sharp and focused, you will be ready and you will be prepared for whatever comes your way. Some preparation is universal, and some of the stuff we are facing is very familiar. And, as they say, nothing new under the sun. And we are facing similar challenges that our ancestors faced. The ancestors, faced colonization and all of its devastating effects. And some of the effects were immediate, some came along later, and some of them were long term, but they all faced invasion, displacement, war, shortages, seeing death and destruction, and other things. And this is a common thing that keeps happening. And also changes in power. And we're seeing a lot of that now. We're seeing very much the things that, if you look at some of those old, like I watched many growing up, the old documentaries from what was happening in the 1950s and 60s in the United States, and what was happening in other countries at that same time, where people were fighting for their independence from colonial rule, and people were standing up and demanding a different type of leadership than what their foreparents had been forced and subjugated to. And so we are seeing that happening very much again in the world around us. Very similar. They may not use the same terms and words that they used years ago to call it what it is, but it's very much happening again and again and again. The same tactics, the same divide and conquer, the same all of that. The same things are happening again and again. And wars keep popping up here and there. Some of these have lasted for decades, and some not. And all around the world, people are standing up and demanding freedom and change, and demanding a different type of leadership than the one that is in place. And sometimes when they stand up and their demands are met with violence and more tyranny, and then you have uprisings or people fleeing. And in other times, the people will stand and fight, and sometimes the tyranny will back down, or sometimes they appear to back down, but it is different scenarios, and this stuff has been happening for a very long time, and it just keeps happening. And with those types of happenings, it's causing a lot of displacement and a lot of feelings of discontent around the planet, and especially here in the United States. There's a lot of discontent, there's a lot of fear, there's a people who are promoting fear mongering and dividing and conquering and mentalities, and also people keeping people in a sense of heightened alert. Is this going to happen? Is somebody going to get kidnapped or deported or this, that, and that, whatever? All these feelings that are widespread. And we also have our own power that we can use to help us prepare and to be just to be ready, and in any situation, in any circumstances. All right. So I mentioned a few minutes ago, a lot of this has been going on for a very long time. Only the time is different, so the things seem different, but it's really not. So let's tonight discuss some strategies and share some ideas that we can help empower one another, because many people who feel afraid, who feel there's so much uncertainty right now, who feel they have no joy in life anymore, and that it's all been an illusion. This is what a lot of people are saying to me and others, and they just feel like giving up. Let's come up with some strategies to empower ourselves and empower one another, so that we don't have anyone in our community, in our wider family, feeling this way, because it is easy to fall into that way of thinking when you feel that you don't have any power over your life or what happens to you. But I want you to know, family, that we do have power, and we have a collective consciousness of power when we come together and unite and support and lift one another up, and be that shelter in the storm for one another, be that rock when someone needs stability, be that bridge over troubled water for someone. Be like, if you've ever seen elephants in nature, when they sense danger, they surround the smaller and the younger ones, and they become like a wall, like a fortress, and they protect each other. So some of us have to be like those mama elephants, and we need to protect our comrades and our youth and our elders, and be that fortress for one another. So we all have to, at some point, sometime we're the fallen comrade that needs protecting, and then there's other times where we have to stand up and show up for one another, and be that protector, and the one that gives everyone empowerment, and helps them feel stronger and fortified. All right, so much is happening on the planet right now. And it seems like nothing is the same, especially since the year 2020. I know many people tell me, 2012 was the big reset, but it really feels more like 2020 was a reset or a beginning of one, because I look back on, there was from 2000 to 2012, and then from 2012 to 2020, and then from 2020 till now 2026. It seems to me the biggest amount of change took place after 2012, and I would say especially around 2020, it's like life has changed a lot in the last 6 years, 6 to 7 years, I would say. But especially after 2020, so much has changed. The home is a new office. The way people buy groceries is different. I see, you know, people delivering food all the time in my community, and people having their groceries delivered. They even have a section at the Wegmans near my house where they have like where people pick up stuff that's been ordered online. Um, how people meet and communicate has changed a lot in the last 6 years. People make appointments just to hang out. Play dates for children. Used to be a time where you could just go to the playground and you played with whoever was there. Um, or children just went outside and they could always find somebody to play with. Those days, not so much now. Now things are different, partly due to safety and just different. Just different. People do things a lot differently than they used to, and whether it's good or bad, it's up to you, but it's just different. I hear people who are dating and looking for a partner, life partners, is different. Many people are meeting folks online. They have websites, and um where you can talk to people, wherever they are in the world, and make arrangements to meet them or not. Some people actually are finding life partners that way. Some people are not. But everything has changed. The schools have changed, work has changed, the way we approach work has changed. The outer environment has changed. There's in some places there's fewer and fewer greener spaces, and all the changes that have taken place also, not just because of electronics and technology, but the weather changes. Everything has changed so much in the last 6 to 7 years. It's been a dramatic change, and so with that rapid change comes different types of feelings, and some people are not able to adjust to those changes, or some people don't adjust as quickly as others, and that can cause unnecessary stress. It can cause anxiety. It can cause other types of feelings, and um, many people are feeling that right now. People are feeling, even though with all this advancement in technology, people are feeling more and more alone, more and more confused, more and more um, like their lives have little to no purpose. And you're seeing a lot of that now. Depression is high. Also, the weather changes are getting more unpredictable and more extreme. You know, before, growing up, we had 4 distinct seasons, and in the Caribbean and Florida, they also had hurricane season. Now the seasons are different. They feel different. They're very unpredictable. You'll have days in the winter where it'll be 60 degrees outside, and then it might rain or something, and the temperature will drop 30 degrees in a few hours. Or when we get snow, it's unusual heavy snow. When we get rain, sometimes it's heavy rain, or some places are getting drought and not getting rain at all or nearly enough. And then you've got the hurricane season. They say it gets worse every year, and it's just extreme weather, partly due to man-made um phenomenon, which has an impact on the planet and the weather itself. And it's just a lot. The forest fires have damaged so much land around the planet, deforestation, mining, all of these things. And anything that you do to the earth, you're going to see the effects of it outwardly. So much of the weather changes and climatic changes that we're seeing is a result of the activities that have taken place for decades on the planet. And this is the planet's, I guess the consequences of it. Also, while all of this is going on, and you all know the time period that we're in, because a great paradigm shift is taking place as we're moving towards the new earth, there's lots of political conflicts and political violence, or politically motivated violence is getting more and more frequent around the world. It's not just in our neck of the woods, but it's happening elsewhere. Political leaders and political lawmakers and others, judges, whoever, they've been under attack by different people. People sometimes, don't like what they say, and or what they do or what they represent, and they want to attack or assassinate or whatever you want to call it. And this is a big issue everywhere, not just here in the US of A. And these types of things also increase the level of heightened sense of vigilance in the communities, and also makes people feel more fear, because if they see these things happening to political leaders, or if it can happen during elections or whatever, when it's happening, then they feel like, oh, this can happen. They can happen to them. It can happen to me. No, but I'm not safe either. And it's just another level of fear mongering that is going on. And sometimes we have to take a break from the media, whether it's social media or the other type of media, because when you are hearing constantly about something that has happened, whether it's political or not, it can cause you to be anxious, hyper vigilant, afraid, and that's not going to be productive or useful to you at this time, because you got to really stay grounded, keep your thoughts pure and elevated, keep your mind clear of those negative emotions like fear, and anger, and anxiety, which can lead you down the path of fear, and on the path towards the dark side, which is not going to be beneficial to you or anyone else. But the political conflicts and politically motivated violence is happening. And yes, it is getting more frequent, because there's a heightened level of dissatisfaction on the planet, and more people are feeling wronged by things, or they want change to go away the way they want it to go. They may not be happy or pleased with the changes that they see taking place. And instead of being a positive partner in change, or coming to coming together with people to find peaceful solutions to change, they want to take matters into their own hands. And that is what you see is happening. These people are popping up all over, and some of them are working independently. Yes, some of them do have mental health issues, and then some of them work together as a group to do the things that they're doing. And it's all because they want to uphold a certain agenda, or they want to uphold a certain mindset, and they're angry and disgruntled and dissatisfied that they're not having it their way, so they're trying to take matters into their own hands. So that's what we also are faced with. And with all of that, high inflation, shortages, job losses, food shortages, all kinds of shortages around the world. And this is leading to a great morale in the number of in people. I noticed that morale seems to be down. I hear from people who travel to other countries and they're saying kind of much the same. Well, in some places, that the morale of people is down in a lot of places. Depression is high, suicide rates, people relying heavily on substances at an all-time high. Some people are heavily relying on social media, video gaming, AI, things of that nature for companionship and for validation and direction. You know, they are so invested in that because a lot of people spend less time with other people and have become more isolated and more alone. And in some people, this can lead to feelings of paranoia, fear, antisocial behavior, you know, more anxiety, depression, etc. And I've noticed there's been a steady trend over the years. They've said, not just something I noticed, but the number of people getting married is decreasing. Um, the number of people in relationships, meaningful relationships, is decreasing. Several countries around the world, they say women are giving up on marriage. They rather be alone and have a pet, or they rather adopt a child, versus getting married, the old fashioned or traditional way, and starting a family that way. And I'm hearing a lot of people say things here that they haven't had relationships um in years, that the single life has become there, has been something that they've had to accept reluctantly, because it just hasn't been favorable in any other way for them. It's just been, it just is. And then a lot of people say that they don't have friends, don't want friends, don't need friends, or whatever. They just, got, as long as they got their phone and social media, they're fine. And when you are on social media, you, depends on what how your algorithm is working, but occasionally I'll come across stuff and you see there's a lot of lonely people out here. A lot of people who their social media audience is all they have. They get on social media and they tell, all of their business. They are posting all day long. It becomes like a more than sharing. It becomes to a point where it's like their job or their life, and they're constantly showing, talking about themselves and what's going on with them. And when they have hard times or difficult times and need someone to talk to, they turn to the world of social media. A lot of people use it as a platform to vent, to express, the things that they're going through, seeking advice from people or whatever. And then you got the opposite end. You got the people who are constantly checking what's going on in someone else's life on social media, and what they're doing and how they're doing it. And I'm going to do it this way too. And it becomes, there's some unhealthiness on both sides. The viewers who are obsessed with someone else, and the people who constantly want to share all aspects of their own lives with other people, whether they're doing it for trolling, clickbait, monetization or whatever. But some people, it becomes like their whole life revolves around social media, or on the online presence. And so this is some people are just giving up, and they say they've lost their joy in life or any kind of sense of purpose, because they say life doesn't feel real. It's so fake. It feels like an illusion. And all of this is very unfortunate. And it can definitely lead to people feeling lost and scattered. And we don't want to be in that space. And in order for us to be prepared for the unknown, we really have to be focused on who we are, where we're going, what our goals are, and not get caught up in the things that's happening all around us. We really, in order to really be ready, folks, we have to be in the world, but not of it. You know, you have to pick and choose what things are going to be distractions to you, what things are going to influence you, what side you're on, and be clear about what side you on, whose side you on, who you are, whose you are, and where you plan on going through this, navigating through this difficult time. You know, you cannot be so lost and so purposeless that you get caught up in all the different things that is out there to distract you, because it's a lot. And you know, many of us fall victim to it, but we don't want to. We don't want to be the victim. We want to be the victor through this challenging time. um, with all the things that's happening, you know, there's wars and rumors of war, and the political violence and all kinds of things all around us, and leaders are not responding to people's requests for peace and positive dialogue and solutions to our problems and change. And there's much talk about, you know, wars and, you know, the fear of occupation and deportation and displacement, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know, the list goes on and on and on. In addition to all the other stuff we just talked about. So how do we prepare for this? How do we be prepared? So one is stay grounded, stay focused, be prepared for anything. Don't think limited, but be prepared. So be prepared. Make sure that you know you stay focused in your mind. Your mind has to be the first thing that you prepare. Okay. Regardless of what's happening around you, you have to stay grounded. You have to stay focused. You have to stay in a state of peace and calm. Do not let yourself be overcome so quickly by emotions. Remember that you are in control of how you feel. And you know, you have to guard your mind and be vigilant against the negative thinking, the negative thoughts, the negative naysaying, and the things that people are going to be coming at you with. Always be in control of your thoughts. So that's the first thing you can do to stay prepared. Another way is being prepared is when it comes to a lot of the things that's happening, make sure you have some kind of game plan, or should I say a safety plan. You know, be prepared for whatever happens. So a safety plan could be making sure that you have first aid supplies, other supplies that you need, being ready for knowing where emergency exits or routes are wherever you live, and just be able to respond quickly in case of a disaster or an emergency. Right now, we've been dealing with extremely cold temperatures and winter inclement weather. So many of us had to stock up on food. Make sure that you do that as well, regardless of where you live. You may say, well, I don't live where, you know, it snows or whatever, but wherever you are, there's always could be some potential emergency. So make sure you stock up and have a few weeks supply of food, you know, based on how much you can afford in case there's an emergency or you have to leave your home suddenly, or you get trapped at home for whatever reason and you can't get out. So make sure you have everything that you need as far as the foods that you and your family need. Water, always have drinking water in case something happens and the water supply, is cut off. Have drinking water, have medical supplies if you depend on prescriptions, insulin or whatever. Make sure you have backup for that in case there's a disaster, a disaster or an emergency. Make sure if you live with people and you have people in your family that take prescriptions or need certain medicines, make sure that they have a backup and extra in case of an emergency or if you have to leave your home suddenly. Make sure all the supplies that you need daily that you have. If you have cell phone, make sure you have an extra set of cell phone chargers, a phone charger for the car, in case you get stranded somewhere or run out of gas. Make sure that you have those kind of supplies. Do not always depend on someone else to have those for you. Make sure you have it for yourself. Another thing you can do in this time is have an escape plan. If you live in a city, make sure you know how to get out of certain neighborhoods. Make sure you know how to get out of your own neighborhood, how to get to places of safety. Know where those places are. If you are one of those people that live in a city and you rely on public transportation, as many of us do, and one thing about that is a lot of people who I've noticed, people who rely on the bus and the train oftentimes do not give good directions. They don't give good directions and they really don't know because they don't have to do the driving and they're so accustomed to someone else driving for them. So in that, if you are that person, make sure you know your area and your surroundings. Make sure you know how to get from one place to another above ground if you take the subway all the time, or if you ride the bus a lot and you are used to letting someone else do the driving for you. And so you've never had to really pay attention or know where things are. Please break that habit. Know where you are. Something could happen. The bus could break down somewhere. You could get stranded somewhere and you have no idea how to get back home because you always are on your phone or reading a book on the bus or something like that, and you don't really know your area or other places. But please be aware of your surroundings and have an escape plan. If something happens and you are at grandma's house and you can't get back home, have an escape plan. Or if something happens and you're at work and you can't get back home, what's the plan? Do you have an extra set of anything at work? Or vice versa? What if you're at home and you can't get to work, something happens, road washed away, anything, always have backup. When you're traveling about, keep your car gas tank on full in case of emergencies, because something may happen. And this is something I have to remind myself of too. But keep at least a half a tank or more in your car at all times. Don't let it get on E, because something could happen and you can't get to a gas station quickly enough, and you don't want to run out of gas and you don't want to be vulnerable in that way. So always keep gas tank half to full, in case of emergency, because something may happen and you can't get, or the places that you normally will go to near you that have gas may not have it, or it may not be safe to take those routes. So just make sure you always have some. If you have to leave your home for whatever reason, or if you're stranded somewhere, and you don't know your way home, have a map, or good old fashioned paper map in your car. Don't always use the phone and be heavily rely on the phone to tell you directions, but have a paper map. If you have one and you don't know how to read it, take the time to teach yourself how to read maps. Now, I know that many of us did not get this in school. Um, I learned from years ago how to read maps. Don't really remember who taught me, but I had to learn. And I think it's a valuable skill because they are very helpful and useful. And have some in your car for travel purposes. You know, each state you go to has a visitor center once you come across the border into the state. And a lot of those places give away free, what they used to, they give away free maps. Get one. And, you know, get one for your state and the states closest to you. And if you plan on, whenever you travel to another state, even at the airport, sometimes they have maps for a small fee or free. Get them, and keep them in your suitcase, keep them in your car, keep them in your purse, keep them in your backpack, wherever, because they may come in handy someday. And take the time to teach yourself how to read them. All right. Have reliable people you can count on in times of emergency. And I know that can be challenging for some of us, but have somebody that you can depend on, that is loyal to you, that is honest, that you can trust. Even if it's just one person, have someone that you can call on in case of an emergency. Something could happen, and you know, you or they could be stranded and you are the only one that can help, or help, you know, whatever, you know. And there's so many different ways that they can be helpful to you. You know, if there's an emergency and you live alone, make sure that loyal, that person that you can trust, has a key to your home, um knows where you are. You know, make sure someone knows, you know, little details. If you're going away somewhere, you know, because we hear lots of stories about people going missing. And a lot of times, you know, there's nobody to, sometimes there's no one to report them missing, or they weren't close to their family and they don't tell them where they are. So they have no clue where to begin to look for them when there's a missing person. And I know that's more extreme case, but these things that happen like that, you know, we have to be prepared. Um, you know, fortunately, um, you know, it just depends on. Many times we don't think that we need to let people know what's going on, and we don't want people in our business or whatever. However we feel, you have a right to feel however you feel. But in case of an emergency, please be mindful that people can't help you if they don't know anything. You know, so if you have a medical condition and you don't want to tell anyone, and you know, you pass out at the grocery store and nobody knows that, you know, you take medicine, or you have a certain conditions, and then you know you end up in the ambulance, and that can be problematic if they don't, you know if no one knows anything about you. um so keep that in mind as well when you're preparing, and and in case of emergency, have someone that you can count on. And then also you may be that person that others can count on in cases of emergency. And they need support. Everybody at some point will need some kind of help or support. Another thing that you can do to prepare and be prepared is take some trainings on first aid, CPR, or some other trainings. Now, I've had CPR training and I've had a few other basic ones. I really feel like I need to take one on. I don't even know if they offer like a midwifery training, but that's something we also need to be mindful of and learn in case of emergency. You know, there's childbearing women nearby and somebody goes into labor. Will we know what to do and not panic at those times if the person cannot get to a hospital right away? You know, these things happen. Men and babies have a way of coming when they get ready. And, many women end up having children in the car on the way to the hospital because of there's traffic jams or inclement weather or whatever the case may be. We need to be aware of that. We need to be able to practice CPR or just basic first aid skills in the event of an emergency for ourselves and for our loved ones or for others. Um, Learn your environment. Know where you can find things in the event of an emergency or disaster. Like if there's fruit trees near you or places where you can get natural spring water or um, places where you can go and you know get fresh seafood or whatever it is that you need, and know where you can get those things. Know which farmers have what items. That's why it's good to get to know your local farmers in case something happens and you can't make it to the grocery store. Be able to know that there's someone nearby that may have produce for you or um, eggs or whatever. So always be aware of your surroundings and know um, how to get in and out of an area. You know, Another thing, check on your peoples, check on your kin, check on your crew. Have an emergency plan for them and a survival plan. For them and with them. Y'all can have a family meeting or get together and talk about how you'll handle certain situations if they come up. Don't wait till they happen and then try to strategize and try to come up with a plan. Have that in advance. Don't wait for others to assist, because sometimes there may be times where others may not be able to assist in the event of an emergency, whether it's a climate emergency or not. You have to be able to be resilient and figure some things out on your own. Start with the people that you have. Start with the people who are loyal to you and trustworthy, and come up with an emergency plan or survival plan with them. Learn to help one another, share resources and supplies if you can, share knowledge and make plans together for survival and disaster preparedness if necessary. All right, so family, I hope this was helpful this evening. Um, it's a lot of things going on and much more to come. 2026 is coming in with so much excitement. And with that said, we want to be prepared and we want to be ready, and we don't want to be found lacking at all in any aspect of our lives. And so, please, family, take heed to some of the things that I'm suggesting this evening. And, I'm sure it's useful to someone in some way. Please let me know in the comments below. And with that, please be patient with yourselves and one another. Remember, family, we are clearing out thousands of years of old, outdated conditioning. With that said, I am willing you all much love, peace, abundance, good health, and freedom. Peace and great blessings, everyone.